guys, so I'm starting a new series, haircut and hair color for the body types. Before this video you can check this one where I talk about hair colors, haircuts and textures of hair in general and how they interact with each other, because not every haircut fits every hair color. That is important to know before you watch this video. This video is kind of like a second part of that one. If you're new to my channel, I have a huge Kibbe body types playlist. I'm gonna leave the link down below if you haven't found your body type yet. Of course, today's hair doesn't look like they were in the 80s, and when David Kibbe wrote his book Metamorphosis, he was actually doing makeovers for his models, totally from head to toe, including hair colors. On the other hand, I didn't notice huge color changes for many of them. It was mostly haircut, but of course nowadays hairstyles, haircuts and hair colors really changed. So we're gonna check more modern examples and what they do to this or that body type. David Kibbe also is very peculiar about colors. He loves color analysis. He also has 12 season system, I think, that he's using on his clients. So for him, it's very important which coloration do you have. So it's important for him that you stay within the range of your palette. When he talks about hair colors for the body types, he's mentioning your coloration as well. Today I decided to start with romantic. So let's go. So here's what David Kibbe says about hairstyle for romantics. Should be soft and stylized with a wispy silhouette framing the face. It should have a set, somewhat ornate look, but should never be stiff. The cut must be layered to accentuate curl or wave, as well as to hold a set effectively. Perms are possible for you, but your hair will still need setting to avoid a messy look. You might not look as good in geometric shapes with angular edge, sleek, smooth styles, blunt-edged or blow-dry. So here on the left we can see that 80s blow-dry. On the right there's modern blow-dry. It looks very different. On the right I think it looks much softer, and I think all of the romantics would look stunning with this right version of the blowout. Also, they normally don't look very good with overly layered hair. It's too messy for them. Also, wash and wear styles. Again, wash and wear styles can be slightly different. If it's too messy, it's probably not for you. Also, stiff bouffant styles. Color should be rich. Subtle highlights add shimmer to the color and accentuate the glow of the skin. It could be light around the face to look very nice on you, except for brunettes. You might not look as good in too bright hair colors unless it's close to your natural hair color. Now let's look at some celebrities' examples and what their hair color and haircut is doing to their features. This is Kate Winslet, and she was typed by David Kibbe as romantic body type. She's very soft, rounded, she doesn't have any sharpness in her body or her face. So as we can see, she's naturally quite light and quite muted. She has that dark ashy blonde hair color, which on some pictures looks slightly warmer, on some slightly cooler, but we're not talking about color analysis today. All I want us to see is how hair color and hairstyle is changing the look. Her eyes are dark blue-gray with some warmth in the center. And when people are muted and quite light naturally, it's sometimes hard to tell if they're warm or cool, if they change their hair color, their blush, their lipstick to a cooler or warmer side. That normally changes their temperature a little bit. Here she started lightening her hair. She's doing some highlights. So normally girls with dark ashy blonde, when they start bleaching their hair slightly, even if it's just subtle highlights, and if they don't go to a white color or banana color right away, they start getting that slightly brassy yellowish or orangey tones in their hair, which normally is not same as warm blonde. Warm blonde is a very beautiful warm hair color that has some blue in it too. It has yellow and red, but a little bit of blue too. It's just proportionally is not as much. So we perceive it differently. We perceive it as very beautiful, very elegant, warm blonde color. I think this brassy hair color doesn't look flattering enough on majority of women. Some people said, oh, I have this brassy hair color, but I look amazing on it. Probably this is warm blonde or close to strawberry blonde, but it's not that brassiness. Brassiness is doing something to all the skin tones. I'm not a big fan of that hair color on her particularly. But if we talk about hairstyle, on the left it looks nice. On the right, this is something that we call wash and go. It's specifically not suiting to romantics, to their gentle and rounded and soft facial features. It's too untidy looking for them. So you can see sometimes how you can have an amazing hairstyle, but if the color is not suiting, something is off still. Or on contrary, if you have amazing color, but your hairstyle doesn't suit, again, You feel something is off, but it's still better than if everything was far from your nature. Now, this is her Titanic era, and they made her hair red. Now, on the left, this is the actual movie picture, and in movie, they do a lot of color correction. They do all the features bright, including eyes, skin, and hair, so it's not very realistic. So if we look at her in real life with this kind of a hair color, it's slightly muted, it's not as bright. And with her white skin, I think that also suits her, especially here when she's having this real romantic hairstyle that suits to each other. She has very romantic makeup, outfit. Everything looks all together as one look. It doesn't mean that she's gonna go like that on the streets nowadays, of course, but if we talk about the look itself that was created on this particular picture, that works perfectly. Now we can see different hairstyles with this kind of reddish hair, and on the left we can see this wash and go bob, which was not styled. This is normally when romantics think that they're fat, even though they are not. They're just very rounded and juicy. So this kind of hairstyles just making them look, oh, I'm just not taking care of myself enough. No, it's just this hairstyle is not for you. On the right, there's another hairstyle. Normally when they open their ears, even though this slight wave there, which is good for their facial features, also her ear is opened, and this whole look is just not for romantics normally. They look much softer when their ear is closed. They can look great with short hair. Of course, it just depends on what kind. And of course, I'm aware that I'm showing you different pictures from the movies where she played. And of course, I understand that she would not do that in real life, for example. It's just good example that we can see. And also understand that it's a picture, so maybe from a different angle, with a different light, it would look slightly differently. But we just discussed the general rules. So we have this opportunity to actually see what this or that color and cut doing to women that are differently built. If we tell 2000 fashion, these two words already show us something like this. Of course, the biggest problem here is that hair. It's very wispy, untidy, and even dirty looking. But that was kind of cool in 2000, so I totally understand that. I did something similar too. Hair color, warm blonde again. Some highlights. Could work with different hair structure. I would still do a little bit lighter. It gives me that untidy, grown roots, brassy highlighted hair. I would make it slightly lighter, a bit more fresh and gentle. And also makeup and geometry of the dress are not the best for her particularly. Another thing that doesn't work for romantics is untidy hair with grown roots. Grown roots by itself, it's a great thing because it can be a beautiful balayage. But if it's combined with untidy hair, it looks dirty and very unelegant on them. You might say it can look untidy on everyone. Maybe yes, but there are still some body types that can look quite cool with this kind of hair, but not romantics. Here she's with darker hair. On the right picture, I think she's wearing a wig. It looks like it was added there in Photoshop because the color is so solid and intense, so its outline is too crisp for her gentle and rounded features. I understand it's also a wig situation, so she still needs more gentle hair color because this particular hair color is too far from her natural hair color. If she was naturally dark, that would be perfect for her, and that hairstyle actually would work for romantics. On these two pictures on the left, I guess this is her natural hair color, grown roots, which I don't think is bad for her. I still prefer her with slightly lighter hair. Now, there was also a period of time when she was wearing that platinum blonde. Unfortunately, I didn't find any pictures in real life. And when we see this heavily edited photo sessions, you almost can tell it's Kate Winslet. With all this makeup, with all this contouring, I personally think that platinum blonde itself suits to her quite well because she's naturally light. The only thing I would add some darker roots and make that melted balayage, very gentle gradient, something like this. So later she became blonder. She had that platinum but still slightly warm blonde with slightly darker roots. I'm not a big fan of that hairstyle itself. Maybe if she would comb that and make it not as wispy looking, that would be even better for her. But I think it's already very, very close to her ideal look. And lately, this is how she looks. She has this very beautiful, light, warm blonde with slightly darker roots. I think it really suits her very much. Sometimes she goes for a cooler toner for her hair, so she's wearing more cool tones. Sometimes she's going for warmer, and I think both fit her very much. Again, I understand that this is a picture, this is a red carpet. She doesn't look like that every day. We don't have to. but just in general, you can see how elegant she looks with this well-combed hair when nothing is sticking out. If we talk about balayage and highlights for romantics, in my viewpoint, they look much better and softer when their roots are melted and not striped. When balayage is very striped and very contrasted, that can give them harshness. So the more gentle they go for, the better. Bright hair by the face also looks very fresh on them and very gentle. But it's mostly for blondes. For brunettes, it doesn't quite work because the contrast becomes too harsh. Now let's talk about Drew Barrymore. She is also a natural blonde. Her natural hair color is dark ashy blonde color. Her eye color is hazel, I think. Slightly greenish with some brown in there. I think she's quite muted. I think this roots is her natural hair color. During the years, she was experimenting with her hair a lot, both hairstyle and hair color. My favorite on her is everything from her natural hair color and lighter up to platinum blonde. I think for these ladies, that looks best. Here on the left, she has always been a fan of a punk style. If that hair didn't have that wispy ends, I think I would like it a bit better. But also earrings, some makeup, t-shirt, everything is not romantic, so we can't quite perceive this hair as a separate element of her look. Of course, we perceive everything all together. So on the right, I like it better because even if the hair is not as light, it has this very beautiful warm blonde color with darker roots, but it's shiny, it's not tousled, it's not styled curl by curl, of course, but at least it's not wispy, it's not sticking out. It's quite shiny and healthy looking. She's wearing a dress, so here it's closer to her look, to her essence. Then at some point she started experimenting with this very contrasted balayage. Maybe she started getting gray, so she wanted her roots a bit darker, so she started darkening it. Instead of her natural level of hair, which is 7 ash, she started darkening her roots, I think, into 5 warm or 5 like that chocolate color. And then her ends are quite bright. And this yellow color is quite close to brassy already. If you don't tone this hair for a long time, eventually it starts getting brassy because blue pigment, which you tone your hair with, goes away first. And then what you're left with, oranges and yellows. So this kind of a hair color, first of all, you preferably should be quite bright in coloration. Maybe have a little bit darker features, because here, if we look in her brows, you know, sometimes when you look at somebody's brows, they can tell everything. When the brows are quite light and thin, and you can see that these hairs are gentle, then this type of hair, it just doesn't fit. It almost looks like a wig on these ladies. So she needs something less contrasted, more gentle, and I would not do the ends so bright yellow. I would make them a bit calmer or more platinum. I would make her roots exactly like her natural hair color. I think in this case it would look stunning. Also on the picture on the right, it's much better looking because of the hairstyle itself, and the makeup is beautiful. On the left and in the center, it's a little bit untidy. It's a little bit more like naturals or flamboyant naturals rather than romantics hairstyle. Romantics facial features are too soft, too delicate for that kind of a mane. Here she's going darker and warmer, so I still think it's quite heavy for her. She needs to go lighter. Every time she's closer to her natural color, she looks great because it looks very gentle. And the fact that the color is overall gives her very clean appearance. Here, blonde, short hair, but hairstyle is different. So on the left, it's quite severe dress with this wet effect hair, which looks slightly untidy. It doesn't look bad on her, but on the right, it looks slightly better. For romantics, they're quite juicy, curvy, soft. For them, that type of hair and that type of a dress look amazing. This look I also absolutely love about her. It's not very sleek hair. It has some volume in there. The makeup is great. It's very gentle. It's almost 50s glam. Also, we have this very gentle dress, which is matching her skin tone. And you know, for many women of different types, that kind of color of a dress would make them look quite pale and not all together. On her, that works perfectly. Now let's talk about a redhead romantic, Isla Fisher. So as I can see from her childhood photos, her natural hair color is also red. Maybe the tones are different. Maybe now she's adding some brightness to her hair color. I'm not sure. But still, it fits her very well, of course. She has very bright, deep, contrasted brown eyes. I think overall, she is quite bright in coloration, so I think this brown color would also fit her, but still orange is giving her that freshness. She's always wearing that long hair. Sometimes she's making them tousled, but most of the time she has this well-styled curls or straight hair. I think both look good on her. She has a lot of hair, so it's giving her a lot of freshness and health. And I think light hair also suits her very well because its overall color, it's quite bright, it's very clean looking and very gentle, especially with this kind of hairstyles. It's very romantic in my viewpoint. Here I think she's wearing a wig. Maybe it looks slightly too heavy along with this kind of makeup. Maybe it's slightly aging her because she needs lightness, delicate approach to the hair and makeup. But I love it too. Now let's look at the brunette example, Gabby Wilson. Her hair is naturally black, of course, very dark. Sometimes she's probably wearing additional hair or a wig or hair extensions. Of course, that all looks very gentle, beautiful on her. Here, even though David Kibbe doesn't recommend to go too sleek for romantics, maybe if we checked this photo head to toe, we would want a little bit more volume on her hair. But just in general, I think on her particularly, that looks great and quite modern. Sometimes she was doing some experiments. It doesn't even look like balayage. To me, it looks like two-colored hair, which I think in modern context on this very young lady who is an artist, that looks quite harmonious. But if we talk about these colors, I'm not sure it's flattering, but still many artists, they like to go for that strange avant-garde things on their hair temporarily. The hairstyle here is stunning though. And here I just wanted to compare these two pictures. So romantics look a little bit better when the ends of their hair is whether curled or just straight healthy, not too wispy, because that wispiness gives them slightly tousled effect, which is a bit too untidy for them. So they look a little bit better with that traditional glamour, wherever they choose to add it. So another stunning long bob that she's wearing on that Barbie premiere. Now Beyonce, she's very famous for experimenting with all those hair extensions in different colors, length, and textures. Her natural hair color is quite dark. I think this is her own hair, correct me if I'm wrong. So in the beginning of her career, she was wearing that type of a hair, and I think that looks very cool on her. I'm not sure about the outfits though, but it's 2000s. In 2000s, it was quite popular to do highlights for some reason at the top of your head. And if your hair is layered especially, it's very visible that the ends of your hair are dark. And on top, you have this light hair, which in my viewpoint is absolutely opposite to how it should be naturally. Naturally, your ends should be lighter than your roots. It always looks more expensive, more natural, just how basically nature works. There's so many examples of this type of a hair color in 2000s and in the 90s, you can't even imagine. So basically they were just highlighting the top part of the hair and the bottom part was still dark. In case you have some layering of your hair, of course bottom hair is sticking out and your top hair is shorter. So in my viewpoint, that looks very unnatural and opposite to how it should be. But I can comment a lot of looks from 90s and 2000s like that actually. So if you have that thing, probably a good idea would be darken your roots slightly and melt them a little bit to make it more natural effect. And of course, lightening your ends. And if we talk about hairstyles here, I think it's wonderful for any romantic. I think I like it a little bit more on the right where her volume is spread evenly. So she has that very soft layers just to soften that pyramid shape. Here she goes black. And I think it almost doesn't matter which hair color you have. If it's a photo session, which is made with great lighting, great makeup, and so on with color correction, then you will look good almost with any hair color and hairstyle. But in real life, it's different. As soon as you have really wrong hair color, or whether it's too bright or too heavy, or on contrary, too dull and too blended, that can really reflect on your skin and on your facial features even. In my viewpoint, both of these hairstyles work for her. This hairstyle on the right, I think it fits to her face. But if you look at the overall body and the way she walks, the way she talks, it would not fit her as good as the hairstyle on the left, flattering hairstyle for romantics. But I think this hair color is too heavy for her particularly. Her skin has this slightly grayish undertone with this hair color, so I think she should go for something a little bit softer. It doesn't mean she can't go dark. I think she looks great with brown hair, but just not as heavy black. Also, she was doing these extensions with this bright blonde money piece. In my viewpoint, very beautiful balayage, and of course, these extensions with this hairstyle look so perfect on romantic. Just look at the overall look. Look at that dress, her puffy leg, in a best sense of this word, because I think it's very, very beautiful when the woman is curvy and soft. Look at that here also, that glamour in its initial sense,
works amazing on romantics, especially with right makeup, with right hair like here. And David Kibbe said that these highlights by the face really make their skin shine sometimes. Not for brunettes though, for somebody who is slightly lighter. So in this case, I think that looks amazing because it's not huge difference with her dark roots still. It looks very soft and shining. Now on this photo, Kibbe doesn't recommend to go too far from your natural hair color for romantics. It can look slightly artificial on them. So if we look at this bleached blonde hair again, this is a photo with absolutely beautiful makeup, and the background and lighting and everything here I think looks stunning. Maybe in a real life, if she's makeup free, she's wearing her regular clothes, probably we would feel like we want a little bit of that darker roots for her, maybe not as cold hair color, slightly warmer. And then on the right here, she has this very bleached front pieces. I like it still. Maybe it's a little bit artificial. For some people, they might say maybe it's a little bit too cold for her. Maybe she looks a little bit better with slightly warmer pieces, but I still like it. I think it looks quite bright on her. She was also experimenting with that bob haircut, and I think probably it's her own hair. Soft, that caramel color with slight balayage on the ends. Nothing harsh in here. It's quite soft looking on her, so I like it. Here, the balayage is more dramatic, and the fact that it's very blended also within her colors, I like how that looks. It's curly, but it's not extremely wild and untidy. Here she has this more or less platinum blonde, a little bit warm with darker roots. I also love it very much, and I think the hairstyle itself also is very beautiful. And on this photo, I don't like the fringe, and not because it doesn't suit her. I think she has such a face, so many things suit to her face. Basically, whatever she does, even if she goes for very sleek hairstyles, it looks normally okay. But here, I just don't understand why would you go for that short, straight fringe, which gives you a lot of geometry, and then it goes to those soft waves. I just don't get it. Overall hair color, I think it suits her, and that long hair, those waves, all that is perfect. I just don't get this fringe. Even if she did this fringe curly, that would be absolutely different situation. It just is lying straight on her forehead as if her hair naturally is straight and she just curled the ends. That's what we did in school in the 90s, so that's the only thing. Let's check one more brunette. Christina Ricci. So this is her natural hair color. Light brown, looks warm here. Her eyes are slightly muddy brown, I would say. But still, she has quite good contrast. This is her with long hair, and I think she looks great with long straight hair. She's a good example because she changed her hair color multiple times. But every time she had that clear overall color. I never seen her with any stripes or contrasted balayage. And this looks so clean on her, so fresh. Almost whatever hair color she chooses. That warm blonde color, which I think also suits her. Maybe I would add a little bit of darker roots just to complement her eyes. Her eyes in this case are slightly unsupported, so I wish she would go for that soft, darker roots that would gradually go into this beautiful creamy blonde. And if we talk about haircuts, I think both of these haircuts look amazing on her. On the right, it doesn't look geometric because she has this rounded bangs. Christina Ricci used to be a very good example for women with round faces, with heart-shaped faces, with quite big forehead and flat head, with this thin and fine hair, which is straight and has no volume. So there's so many times when somebody used her images to actually show what this or that hairstyle does to your round face. I don't like when people try to correct their face shape. I like when people just do what resonates with their look, with their nature. Most of the time she has her hair straight, and as far as her hair quite thin, it's lying very flat on her head. So there are multiple things that she does that actually make this hair work for her particularly. So I think she looks great with shorter hair, with longer hair, with straight hair, with curly hair, and with wavy hair, with bangs or without bangs. The only thing that I like when her bangs is slightly rounded when she's styling it, like here. It's slightly curled, it already looks much softer and speaks along with her body structure and her facial structure. Another great example of her going red, and in this case also her hair is quite long, she's doing those waves which looks amazing, and this straight bangs works perfectly with this wavy hair because she curled it a little bit. If she had it straight, maybe it would also fit her, but it would look more like she's a little girl. Probably the vibe would not fit. Then we have great example of her going platinum blonde. blonde. On the left, it looks much better in my viewpoint just because of the hairstyle. If her hairstyle would be close to Marilyn Monroe, it probably would work even with her coloration, which I think it's already too far from her coloration, from her eye color, and it's just unsophisticated on them normally when it's just so far. Yeah, I know I'm Marilyn Monroe, but she's a little bit of exception, probably because her eye color was blue, maybe her skin tone, and of course her hairstyle. She would never go for that hairstyle that Christina Ricci has here. So in Marilyn Monroe case, I think that worked perfectly, and especially with those cameras and with those photos that showed that light and shadow in a very specific way. And as I said in my video about cut and color and how they are combined together, not every hair color fits to every hairstyle. So in this case, platinum blonde just looks quite cheap. It's very clean color and it's very, very artificial. You almost can't find people who have this hair color naturally. So it's already very glamorous hair color that looks is best in artificial light. So it has to be styled in a certain way. When Marilyn Monroe styled this bleached blonde, this is when this kind of hair color is shining its most, and this is when it looks softest. Platinum blonde is very glamorous thing, and there are very certain hairstyles that look good with this platinum blonde. Any bob, any geometric cut, bob with bangs, bob without bangs, all that looks perfect with platinum blonde, but it looks quite geometric. If this platinum is with curls or with waves, then it also looks quite good, but it looks very different. It gives a lot of softness and a lot of glamour. If there's a lot of hair, of course, it can be slightly untidy. That will just look free. And if you have very little hair and wispy and untidy and layered, with this platinum blonde, it will just look like your hair is very, very sick. Because normally platinum blonde hair look also quite matte, because cuticles of your hair is lifted. Not every hair can look shiny with this bleaching process. So here, even though it's not platinum blonde, but you can see how much softer that looks with this slightly old-fashioned curly bob. Here she is with that hair color that is close to her natural hair color. I think it looks stunning as well. I think for romantics with this type of a hair, that hairstyle also can be good. And she went even darker, and I think it still suits her. I think her eyes can pull that off. The darkness and that contrast that she has in her eyes, also her eyes are huge, and if she's doing that slightly brighter makeup, I think she can pull that off. Again, her bangs is slightly rounded. Each person within one type can have her own features, her own additional things. For example, in Christina Ricci's case, she has a couple of sharp features in her face. Sharp nose, sharp lips, sharp chin. So with that sharpness, that geometry of her hairstyle actually works well. And I think for romantics like Kate Winslet, for example, that geometry would be a little bit too much because her face is extremely soft. And last but not least, let's talk about Emma Samms. I just wanted to show you several examples. She became a star in the 80s, and in the 80s, that crazy perm layered hairstyle was very popular. Then in the 90s, of course, that wispy short layered bob was very popular, along with these stripy highlights. Of course, these things don't look the best on romantics. Romantics look much better with something like this. So here she has that very calm overall hair color that is very close to her natural hair color, which is styled in soft waves. That looks great. Or here, when she's wearing that blue dress, she has this updo, which is also not very crazy, very well styled, looks very glamorous on her. And if we compare with this kind of hairstyle, having this balayage and that tousled hair, it's not quite there. It's not bad, but it's not playing that harmony with her look, with her nature.
Right, that's it. Hope that was interesting. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.